Hello, hello, Julie Bartkus here. Welcome to Get Connected. We're going to be here today for about 30-minute show, so a little bit shorter, but Michael Tasner and I are delighted to be sharing with you some information on a topic that we talk a lot about changing in our childcare programs, and that is habits. So I want you to think about the habits that you want to change and the habits that you wish people around you would change. And we're going to be talking about how to make habitual changes so that you can achieve new levels of success. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
Everything is going well over here. Everything is well. A little chilly in Buffalo again, but I guess I'll be saying that for the next few months. So
I know, right?
Everything was iced over.
Hawaii or something.
So I just, one of the, I wouldn't say mentors, but one of the people I bought a course from on generating PR and press and all that good stuff. I guess he has him and his wife, they have a habit that they do every single year. They do their yearly planning in Hawaii. Oh. So for like the last 15 years, they go for like 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah, I think I need to make that one of my yearly habits, to do your kind of yearly planning and all that good stuff. And
get it all done. I'd be tempted to sleep and stay on the beach.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be a great place for me to be, like knee deep in strategic planning. And I think, to your point, I think I would rather just sit and do nothing and relax.
Yeah. And if you're here joining us, tuning in, let us know. Are there some habits that you would like to change? Are there some things that you're struggling with? And every time I look at my planner, my Freedom Mastery planner, it's fantastic because it's got a habit tracker right in it to where I could be identifying the new habits that I want to create. And there's some that I write in there year after year because I haven't established that habit yet. But today we're going to talk about habits, and we're going to give you some ideas in terms of really making your habits just part of your routine. And that's pretty cool when that can happen. And, one of the habits I think about is people are always talking about drinking more water, getting in the habit of drinking more water. And it's one of the habits that I've mastered. Now I drink lots of water. But before, when I was struggling with this, it's like, how are you going to get all this water in? So is water one of your habits that you struggle with?
It is. And when you and I were kind of brainstorming around topics for today, and I'll keep an eye on the chat. I just posted a few questions. What habits are you most proud of? Are there some habits that you would like to pick up? So I'd love to hear responses from our listeners to those two. But everyone,
if you're thinking right now you want to pick up the habit of drinking to make it through these times, that's not what we're doing. We're going to help you think about constructive habits.
Definitely. I mean, now is usually the time when a lot of our listeners and a lot of childcare center owners and directors and leaders, they want to move in the right direction. They want to start off this kind of fresh year and just not be behind the 8 ball. So it definitely is one of those times where people are just kind of analyzing everything and looking at habits. And I think it'd be obviously a fun conversation to look at maybe a couple of the habits that have served you well, served myself well, and that we can give a couple of resources as well.
Yeah, and I think when you think about habits, I want you to think about anything you're going through with your staff or anybody in your life who you think needs to change something. It really becomes hard to change those things because they are habitual. So even something like workplace gossip, to me, that's a habit that people get into. So it's not really enough to stop gossiping. It's got to be a habit replacement, something that we do instead. And that's true with any habit that we do. So even when it comes to weight loss or whatever it is, like getting the water in, it becomes about, well, what are you going to do instead? So what's the new habit that you're going to create that's going to replace the old habit of not doing that thing or whatever it was that you were doing? Maybe it's drinking too much soda. So now instead of soda, you're going to be drinking flavored water. So there's different habits that you can build, and some are going to be easy and some are going to take a lot of strength and a lot of courage.
No, definitely. One of my favorite books, if you haven't read it, you probably have read it, but if our listeners haven't, it's Atomic Habits. Okay. Really great book on habits and why we have habits, how do the habits end up kind of becoming. And I think one of my biggest takeaways from that book was that just the human species, in order to kind of, I guess, introduce or change a new habit, that were much more driven by kind of rewards.
Mm.
So simple example, usually everyone wants to exercise, work out a little bit more. They come out of the gates in January. Most people that I know of hate working out or hate exercising. But if you then start to couple that with, well, what is something that you really enjoy? Well, you enjoy, I'll give you a personal example. I love watching Netflix and Prime and just going through fun shows and things like that.
A little Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I'm only on went through all the first one. My son, I'm like, hey, why don't you wait for me? And then like all of a sudden he's like, oh, I'm done with the other 2 seasons. So,
Oh my goodness.
but
I'm loving that show. But yeah, that's
yes. So like if you've got some habits like that kind of drive pleasure in your life, that if you then bundle the two. So can you bundle then kind of exercising with doing the exact same thing of also then watching Netflix.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, and I think it's really
I'm
important.
just going to adjust my camera real quick, but go ahead, keep talking.
Okay, I think it's really important to identify right at the start of the year what habits. I've got a whole list that I created of the different habits that I want to change and the things that I want to work into my life, and it's so important to be able to identify those and to make sure that they line up with the goals that you're setting and the main objectives that you want to accomplish. So on my wall, I have my life broken down into different areas, from financial to health to whatever it might be, to relationships that I want to build and cultivate. And I've got like 6 different huge Post-it pages. And then I'm writing down the different habits that I want to cultivate to help me be successful in those areas. And if you can adapt new habits, that's truly going to be the builder of success that you want to experience. So I really encourage you, while you're here with us, think about what habits you need to incorporate, or what habits do you need to break so that you can experience greater levels of success. And then I know one of the big things with habits is, doing it consistently. And the consistency factor is the hardest one. But if you can set yourself up to be consistent with that habit for 21 or 60 days, you'll know then that it's pretty much a new thing that you've built into your routine. And no longer is it a habit that you're building, it becomes part of who you are.
No, that's really well said. And I think that's one of the most overlooked areas where people start trying them out, but they don't let them stick long enough.
Yeah.
So as you were saying, I mean, there's all the research around how long it takes to kind of form a new habit and start to kind of adopt into your identity, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Your new identity. That's
exactly.
I like that.
And it just, one of the things that I've struggled with is coming out with this list of here are all the different habits. Here's what I want to stop doing, start doing. And usually my first issue is having too many that I want. I'm like, I want to drink more water. You want to exercise. I want to do some other stuff with investing and build that into a habit. And you start to, well, geez, there's a list of like 50 different things here. And that just moves people into either analysis paralysis, mm-hmm. which I'm seeing a lot of with the centers that we're working with. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of the same, where people are just continuing to overanalyze. Are they making the right decision? Is this the right path to go? Is that the right habit to change? Like, where you're just and then you don't end up changing anything, mm-hmm. unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the other big challenge for myself, and as you were saying, for a lot of others, is as they launch these new habits, if you're only giving them 3 days, well, I didn't like this whole working out thing. So you got to give some of these things, and I know it's the most obvious one, but you got to give these things a bit more of a chance to start to vibe with you and kind of get yourself into a better spot.
Yeah. And I'd love to talk about some of the psychology behind changing a habit, but I also love to give an example, like even the water thing. Like, how do we get you, Michael, drinking enough water this year, right? So one of the things, I want to give you a couple of success strategies. So if you're struggling even just with water, here's a couple of ideas for you in terms of, and this is how I did it, because I used to use water a lot as a tool to like flush my food down. Like I'd take a bite of food and then I'd chug water. And then the nutrition experts these days say it's not good to do that, because then you lose the nutritional value of your food if you're watering it down. So one trainer I worked with, he had a really good idea. And the idea stuck with me. It made sense to me. And now it's like I get 2 big bottles of water in every day, even before noon, I get those in.
Oh, well.
Yeah. And one of the things I did, I got a water bottle. If you look up, I know Michael will, he'll look up on Amazon, he'll be ordering one. But there's a water bottle that I fell in love with. It's by Kaktaki. I think it's Cactaki or something like that. But it has some measuring on it. So it says, here's where you should be by noon. Here's where you should be by 6. So you fill your bottle up twice, and that's the amount of water that you should be drinking by 6 o'clock. And one trainer who I was working with named Glenn Dawson, who's brilliant with Reset You, he says, you know what, your body is so dehydrated in the morning, have that water bottle ready, filled, and then just do like a period of just chugging that water first thing when you wake up. So now when I get up, I sit there and I pretty much chug one whole thing of water. And it's interesting that it doesn't go through me necessarily until I get to the second bottle, but it just doesn't go through you because your body's dehydrated. And I think it's just fueling your organs and hydrating your body. So that's one of the things that I started doing, making a new habit, was I took my water bottle, filled it up before I went to bed at night, had it there with me. And in the morning when I wake up, it's like my coffee that I'm just chugging, and I chug it until that one bottle is gone. And then I also use a water tracker. So in our planners, Michael, in the Freedom Mastery Planner and in many others, there's actually a tracker where you could check off, yep, I drank water 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I know if I get through my my 2 bottles that I drank all that I need to drink for the day.
And that was the other big thing in this book, Atomic Habits, was talking about creating kind of a framework to track your habits. And that was the other, I mean, there was a lot of takeaways from the book, but that was another big one. And as you're saying, you're tracking it in the Freedom Journal. And there's a lot of other ways to do it. So I'm doing it through there. I'm doing it through an app that I use called Notion that I've really started liking quite a bit. And speaking of analysis paralysis, there's like 100 different ways to like leverage this tool. And like there's some people that are like just insane with the tool of what they're doing, but being able to just visualize. And I think it was, I don't know if it was Jerry Seinfeld or someone along those lines of like, he showed, I think it was him, where he had a big kind of thing on his wall where he just every day would put in an X so that he didn't break the chain.
Yes.
I think his one habit was maybe practicing comedy or something like that. And he's like,
oh, wow, that's cool.
Showing that for like 4 years or something, 30 minutes of practice or something along those lines. And
nice.
the psychology of like not wanting to break the chain. So, I mean, if you all of a sudden have been doing this for years or months, it's like, yeah, I don't really feel like doing it today, but do you really want to break
the chain?
Break that chain. And it's just from a mental standpoint, that's really, really hard to do.
I think that's brilliant. So here's one of my examples of not breaking the chain. Oh, I don't know if you could see that. Yeah. So this is brilliant. This is a habit tracker, and this is only one. If you research Google habit trackers, there's a lot of these on Pinterest, and people have made different ones. But this one I'm using to track my exercise. So you can see like the first 3 days of the year, I was lazy. I was not back into my exercise, but then every day since then, I've been working out. And I've color coded some things on the back here, so I kind of know what I was doing, but I'm using another tracker also. But anytime you're looking to change a habit, you could get a habit tracker like this. So we have leaders, childcare directors, and owners who print out habit trackers for themselves and for their staff. And they're tracking different habits, whether it's getting around to every classroom and paying compliments or writing out handwritten notes to parents. But you start tracking the habit, and then like what Michael is sharing with Jerry Seinfeld, it's like, all right, I don't want to break my month, or I don't want to have like a lot of uncolored spaces when I get to the end of the year. So this is a really cool one. And I've seen people who've accomplished really big goals in their life use these habit trackers. And I recently have a friend, and she's being published in some journals because she lost a lot of weight. She's been struggling for years, and she had several of these trackers that she would pull out and she would color and she would show them online, but it just kept her on track. And it's as crazy as it sounds. I look forward to coloring my little thing in every day. And my boyfriend's actually using one too. So we're both coloring, but he's using it a little bit of a different way. But I think he's writing some letters or something in his. But, it's just to show that you're making consistent progress towards a goal that you really want to achieve. So think about those behaviors and think about trackers. Think about something visual, especially in the childcare industry. We are so visual. You need something that you can see and go, oh yeah, my enrollments are increasing. Look, I enrolled, or yeah, we got so many leads in and we're following up and we're coloring in that tracker in terms of how many leads we follow up with every single day. And then it becomes a habit because you make it fun. And then when you get to a certain point on your tracker, you celebrate the success.
Love it. Yeah. And I just, as you were speaking, I was making sure I wasn't imagining the Jerry Seinfeld thing, but I read it on Lifehacker. This was published in 2007, where he literally just had a calendar, a big red marker, and his thing was to write jokes every day.
Yeah.
So that was his number one, I guess, productivity secret. But
I want to do that with articles.
Yeah, I think
I really feel like I love to write, and I used to write like daily, and I feel now with all of the coaching groups and the different things that we're doing, I'm like, I'm not writing as much. I'd really love to write. And somebody in one of my masterminds gave me a really good idea yesterday that I'm going to be implementing. But yeah, so what is it that you want to change? If you're tuning in, let us know what habits. Would love to hear from you.
So what are a couple of the habits that, if we were sitting in our listeners' shoes, that you would, I have a couple that I would obviously suggest. Are there a couple of habits that, not necessarily personal habits, but some things that they could look at implementing at their childcare center?
Oh, I think so. It just really depends upon what's going on and where you're at with your growth. So it could be a very individualized answer, but one of them could be like a habit, could be having a designated time to go on Facebook every day, or having a designated time to check your email. And I know with productivity, and I've been talking to my clients a lot about this, is that often our email and Facebook becomes something that acts upon us. It's become something that becomes urgent in our life because it's there. So what I really recommend people doing is time blocking and running with blocks of time, like you're running a race to get a goal done, but also time block so that you do have your Facebook time and you do have your email time, but that it's not acting on you whenever somebody decides to send you an email. It's like, oh, okay, there it is. Now my agenda is Vicky Sue, who just sent me an email. So that would be one big habit. And that's something that I continuously work on. I'll be honest with you, especially running groups when I'm on Facebook a lot. I'm like, all right, shut it down and, just get to doing and being in the joy of the work that I love to do. So really think about time blocking your social media, time blocking your email, and setting a time where you get all of your stuff done, like you're running a race first and you're done by 1 or free by 3, whichever phrase you like to use. And then you can have time to play with Facebook or your email.
No, I think that's a great one.
I think that's a big one, probably for anybody, regardless of what level you're at. And it's hard. And that's why it's hard for even employees to leave their cell phones, in their car or not look at them during the day, because it is like a really bad addictive habit to be checking Facebook. And some people sleep with their phones right next to them. And that could be another habit you change, I've been leaving my phone in another room. I don't sleep with my phone next to me anymore. But before, when I couldn't sleep, or I'd be restless at night, I'd be checking my phone, what's going on. But now my phone is like on a charger in a separate room. I don't even have it in the bedroom.
Love it. I like that one also.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have my rain sounds at night on my cell phone.
Yeah. Well, and you might be able to leave it there or not look at it. But I found myself when I was sleeping lighter, thinking about work, I'd be hopping on the cell phone. And, it becomes really easy to do it. It's just a beautiful distraction.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
How about you? What habits do you think our leaders out there can be making?
I'll throw a couple. So the first one is letters or kind of acts of kindness, acts of appreciation. So
Ooh,
I'm
love
a
it. That's
big fan of just weekly, takes 10, 15 minutes. I didn't do it this year, so I should, but I bought it on one of my favorite websites, Amazon. And it was greeting cards for the entire year, but it was designed to the name was like something on the like acts of kindness or something, with
Nice.
the whole strategy of once a week you write a card to whoever you'd like and you mail it, and just thank you. And I need to get back into that habit because it's one that definitely makes you feel really good.
Yeah, that's a great one. And on that note, I want to say right here on this table next to me is,
I love it. You already have.
I think there's 200 of them. And I'm like, all right, my goal for this year is to at least get these 200 out in terms of appreciation or just follow-ups or different things that I want to say. And it's really nice because the pack that I got, it's just like a little index card.
Yeah, and that's
So
probably
you don't even have to
easier.
make a full card.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit easier because I think when I started talking myself out of it, I'm like, it's a huge card. So if I don't write a long note and
Yes.
so
And then use those erasable gel pens. So if you make a mistake, you could just erase it. And
definitely.
Yeah.
So that's one, and then
That's a great one. And what was the website again? Where are you getting the cards from?
This is from Amazon. I'll find if I ever need anything in a pinch. That's usually where I go. But I prefer to go to a local business, local cardstock place, for example. Let's see. I'm sure I'll find it. I think it's called Acts of Kindness Cards.
Love it.
52-week. It's a set. Act of Kindness cards. So that's one thing. Another one that I think would be really helpful, selfishly from a marketing perspective, is one social media post to your personal page, your personal Facebook page, Pinterest, whatever platform or platforms you'd like to use, and your centers. So there's so many really neat things that you're doing day in and day out. And I see a couple of different types of centers that we work with when it comes to social media. So one type of center, they post everything, lots of pictures of the kids, and they're almost posting too much.
Right.
It really isn't too much, but they might be posting 3, 4, 5 times a day. I see another type of center that everything that they do, they post usually once or twice a day. Everything is stock, so stock images, which isn't terrible. So I'll come back to that in a second. And then I see the third type of center that they're usually posting authentic things maybe a few times a week. Authentic meaning authentic images. And the centers that tend to post less, they usually are either nervous about using photos of their kids, and obviously because they're kids and they're not of age of consent, for example, you've got to make sure that you have the proper disclosures and the parents have signed off. And some parents, they're not going to ever want their kids on social media, which is fine. You just need to make sure that you're keeping track of who agreed, who didn't agree. But most of the centers, a lot of the parents, they like to show off their kids, and they're usually fine with it. But a lot of owners, I find, and directors and teachers are like nervous to ask or to put a policy. So you just need some kind of policy.
Mm-hmm.
But once a day, I would be more than happy with you starting with once a day and just getting into that rhythm, getting into that habit so that you can start to showcase all the really fun things that you're doing. The family of the day or family of the week. Showcase one of your teachers, for example. Showcase a field trip, a craft that you guys did, something along those lines. But just once a day, you want to be executing that stuff like clockwork.
Great strategy. Love it. Love it. And along those lines, I'll give you another habit that's a really great one to build. And imagine if you did some of these things like all throughout the year. I think where you would end up would be just in this rockin' amazing place. So another habit that I think is really important is having conversations with people, and you could do so right now, even online. So if you are looking for staff, you find yourself always looking for staff, I encourage you, go on LinkedIn and start building some relationships there, and even set a goal where you could build in a habit to have 3 conversations per day. And a conversation could be basically as simple as, hey, I am so-and-so, the owner here. I see you're in childcare. I would just love to connect and learn more about you. And then think eventually, when you're hiring and you've got all these different relationships built, you could say, hey, Sally, I know that we've gotten to know each other here a little bit. I wanted to let you know that we've got an opening, and I just thought I'd run it by you to see if you'd like to learn more. And I tell you what, everybody's always looking for new opportunities. Most of the time, everybody's open to hearing more. So take some time, and LinkedIn, I think, is a great platform. It's an underused platform in this industry because nobody knows what to do with it. But I want you to know also that most college professors, when they've got graduating students, require their students to fill out a LinkedIn profile. So it could be where you just do a search for childcare in your area, see who comes up as a teacher, childcare, whoever it might be, and start building some relationships with those people who could potentially partner with you or potentially work for you. And that's a great habit to build, because think 3 conversations a day, that could be, what is that, 15 a week? Multiply that by 50 something weeks a year, and you've got, what is that? I don't know, 500 new contacts?
A lot.
500 plus new contacts. That's my math. So to me, that's a really good habit to get into.
So one of my coaches, one of my mentors, his name is Jack Daly. He's a sales trainer. So his expertise is kind of all things sales training, and really great public speaker, and just knows a lot of great stuff. But one of the things that he demoed at one of the presentations was, he called it his money bag. So it literally is in a money bag, and he carries it around with him everywhere that he goes, card, his briefcase, at home, etc. And in that money bag, similar to some of the stuff we just talked about, but I just was pulling up the list. So he sent me the exact list. So felt tip pen, pick a style, stick with it. Ballpoint pen for envelopes, company thank you cards, personal thank you cards, personalized stamps, and business cards. And his big thing was that he'd fill out the card, like if he was having a meeting, if you're doing a Zoom, he'd fill out the cards as is, drop it off ASAP. And then what he would do was friend you on every single one of the social media platforms that you're on. Mm-hmm. And he attributed this one thing to be his number one secret to success in building his network, building relationships. So like as he was speaking at a conference, he would do the same thing with the meeting planner, anyone that he's meeting. He literally, in the evenings or on breaks and things like that, as he was meeting people, he would pull this money bag out and he would start writing the thank you note. It was a pleasure meeting you. And if I can be of any service, here's my business card, and just mailing these things out like candy. But
wow.
if you were doing that, again, as Julie said, with prospective teachers, for example, what if you're doing it with families that your teachers, your directors, whomever's doing the tour, that they're putting in the mail, because you're not going to win every single tour. You should be winning a lot of them, but you're not going to win all of them.
Right.
But what if you're still putting a handwritten, and not just, oh, thank you for visiting, we hope that you enroll, but put a couple of personalized notes in there. And just the key with all this, and our whole discussion for today, was you got to make these things a habit. It's not, you can just do it once a year, twice a year. You've got to start to make some of these things a habit. And I think our big push for all of you that are listening to today is to start to look at your habits, and what are 2 or 3 or 5 or 1, what are those habits that you're going to start to turn into, lifelong habits, lifelong success habits. And as Julie said earlier in the presentation today, of things that then start to form your identity. Of it, if you're the person that you had sloppy follow-up, and I say that with love, but most childcare centers, they're not amazing when it comes to following up with leads and families that toured, because you move on to the next thing. But if that was where things were today, but you started to adopt the success habit of, well, I want to change that. I want to be the best at follow-up and follow-through, and I'm going to commit to doing X. And you start to implement that habit after a certain amount of time, it becomes a full-blown habit. And you'll start to see those results. That's everything that I have read and learned and trained, is that your habits, and I can speak from, personal experience, your habits are what make up every single area, every single aspect of your life. Your money habits, your eating habits, your business habits, your personal relationship habits, they all make up everything. And your current reality is a direct result of all those tiny habits that you've been formulating.
Yeah, and think about the habits that are really going to help you step into your power zone. Because I know a lot of you are feeling powerless because a lot of times as we're going through the day, we're thinking about all the things that we should be doing or how we should be doing this differently or this or this or this or this. But when you actually start to put your plan in place to build new habits, you start stepping into your power zone, and that's going to help you be successful in every area of your life. So for me, the lifting weights and the being healthy and getting more weight off this year, those are some of my goals, but all the habits that I'm going to need to implement to get to that goal put me in my power zone. So today when I'm working out, man, I feel it. But if I didn't work out for 4 days, I'd be feeling like, ugh, I'm that same old person. So use a tracker, use a system so that you see yourself becoming the successful person that you know is possible for you, or this more successful person, or this other kind of person, whatever it is. But really use something so that you can be consistent with those habits that are going to make you into that success that is totally possible for you.
Love it. I'm going to give one more book recommendation, and then I've got to scoot off. We can end with our quote for today.
Okay.
You've probably heard of this book, or maybe you've read this one, but another really great book to read that's a lot about habits is The Miracle Morning.
Oh, yeah.
And just really the community, the Facebook community on this Miracle Morning. I don't know if you're in their group, but their free Facebook group is exceptional.
Really?
I'm on way too many Facebook groups, but what I like to do is I'll search the Facebook groups, and usually once a week somebody says, what's your best book you've ever read, or there's some books you're reading, and then I go through there, I scan them. If I see the same book coming up time and time again, I've got Amazon open, then I'll buy like 10 Kindle books at a time, and then just keep me busy for a while. But really great book to read about owning your day from the start in the morning and building in those certain habits. And they talk about, this is the Miracle Mornings, the habits that they've suggested of journaling and meditation, drinking water, I believe is one of those, having a healthy breakfast. So just kind of talking through that of kind of jump-starting your day, but really great book to read on habits if you haven't already.
So are you a 5 a.m.er?
I'm not. So I've been trying to. I've been doing 15. I'm starting to get back into 15 minutes every week that I'm going earlier. But I don't have insomnia, but I've got that sleep apnea. So I feel like I'm always tired. So I know that, I guess, chronically they say I need a ton of sleep. So that's how I justify it. But usually I'm up by 7 or 7:30. I've been trying to go like 7:15 and then 7, but I don't know if I'll be in the 5 a.m. club. But there are people that, there's always going to be different philosophies. And the important thing is picking one of them and sticking to it. Like I could care less if you wake up at 5 or you wake up at 8, as long as you're executing those habits that are going to make you successful, make you a better person, a happier person. To me, I can give you every single side of the spectrum, because you got some people that say you've got to be up at 5 a.m. and start your day and and win your day by 7.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. But then you have the other people of, well, you need to be getting 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep. If you're not getting sleep, there's all these long-lasting negative effects on your health. So there's always going to be, two sides to everything. It's again.
Absolutely. And then there's the studies about late night people versus early morning people. So, and sometimes that could be both. So it gets to be a challenge, but habits. This was a good show. Good topic.
Definitely one that I think we'll have to revisit.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope everybody who's tuning in has benefited from this. And we're going to be back next Wednesday at 1 o'clock Central Time, 2 o'clock Eastern. And in the meantime, we're going to give you, we'll end with a quote. But Michael, where can people find out more information about you and your marketing genius?
Thank you for asking. So local childcare marketing. Again, we're a digital marketing agency working with lots of different childcare centers to help them grow their enrollments and improve their brands. So I'll throw that up here. And I know that, Julie, you do a lot of absolutely amazing things. You've got masterminds, coaching programs, workshops. What is the best place for people to go and hear about you?
Sure. Just go to childcarebusinesssuccess.com. And there's even a free book offer at the top. So go ahead and claim your free book, Childcare Business Success, best-selling Amazon book. And we'd love to get the process started with you.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
All right. Are you giving a quote or you want me to give a quote?
If you have one handy, I'll give you, I pulled a habit one. I'll give one and then you can, if you have one as well. So
Okay.
The habit quote that I had for today is, motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going.
Fantastic. And I'll give you another one that's more of a motivational level to keep in mind too, because we don't want you to feel like, oh, but I'm not really establishing that new habit. Remember, even if you shoot for the moon and you miss it, you'll land among the stars. And I've heard that by Les Brown. And then also I've heard that Cher quoted for that as well. So shoot for the moon. And even if you miss it, you'll land among the stars. So aim big, but know that progress is progress and celebrate that.
Thank you ever so much, everyone, for tuning in to us this afternoon. We will see you back here next week. And as always, if Julie or I can be of help, email us, visit our websites, let us know. We are here to help and support you. Have a great rest of your day and week.
See you, everyone.